any news out of Apple is big news out of Apple, especially when Tim Cook says things like, Jaeden had texted me about this as soon as it happened, where he's like, Apple has to win, we must win, all this sort of stuff, when we have all seen Apple continually fall down on the AI wars. So, sorry, AI wars. Okay, a little aggressive. But whenever we think about what Apple is doing, we have so many Apple apologists out there. Jaeden and I are two of them. We love Apple products, so don't get too crazy with us. But it is glaringly obvious that Apple is not following the plan that they thought they would be following. Jaeden is chomping at the bit to talk about this. Just as we get into this, by the way, Jaeden was showing me the latest numbers for his company, AI Box. Guys, if you have not tried AIbox.ai, please go. $19 a month, you have access to every model. I was just doing this with my buddy Robert Haslam, who I work with, and we were jumping back and forth between Gemini, Claude, all these things, and we work together. And he's like, no, we have subscription to that. We have a subscription. The amount that we pay for all these things, meanwhile, $19 a month on Jaden's AIbox.ai, you get access to all these different models. You can compare them side by side, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, everything. Please, I beg you, check it out. It's amazing. Okay, Jaeden, sorry, that was too long. You want to talk Apple? Talk to me about what Tim Cook said and why you love it.
Okay, Connor and I. Okay, well, first of all, I got to preface this by saying, I look at our podcast analytics, and anytime Connor and I start trash talking Apple, I just see this massive drop in our listeners.
Come on, people.
Because most of our listeners are on Apple Podcasts, and I know it just hurts your ears when you hear people, trash talking Apple. And I will preface this by saying, I just got the newest Apple iPhone a month ago. I know I've been saying for ages, like, okay, it's time to switch. I'm going to go to Android because it's got all the cool AI features. Well, I got a new carrier and they offered me a new iPhone. So how could I say no? In any case, all this to say, I use Apple. I do love Apple. I think they make a good phone. Very disappointed in basically what they've done with AI, but this might change today. So today on the podcast, I want to talk about what Tim Cook has said, which I think is a big vibe shift and direction shift for Apple. Maybe the first time we've seen him push so aggressively on this. Number two, he may be making a ChatGPT competitor and a competitor to Google in one, which is going to be crazy. So we're going to get into all of that on the podcast today. Like you were mentioning, Connor, I think the big thing came out of an hours-long all-hands meeting where he basically told all of the companies that they, quote, must win in AI. He has not been this aggressive in the past. In the past, he's basically been like, we're taking a very thoughtful approach to AI. That's kind of when ChatGPT came out and basically didn't do anything. Then they end up having to get saddled. I mean, not saddled, but they got stuck with basically having to use third-party AI tools like ChatGPT built into Siri because it couldn't handle it. They said, we're building our own thing. And then it got super, super delayed where Siri basically didn't get all the AI they promised in Apple Intelligence. A lot of people felt like they got tricked when Apple did their big Apple Intelligence announcements, and then it never actually rolled out into what they were doing. So all of this to say, it seems like Tim Cook is really serious about it. And it's kind of funny because I don't even know if he's serious about it because users care. It feels like he's serious about it because investors care. So he had basically their earnings call. And on the earnings call, he told the investors and all the analysts that Apple would, quote, significantly increase their AI investment. He then went and told all the Apple employees something very similar, saying, quote, Apple must do this. Apple will do this. This is the He said, this is sort of ours to grab. Okay, Tim Cook, this was yours to grab like 4 years ago, but whatever.
Yes,
I think I'm excited that Apple's taking a bigger approach. I have no idea and not the faintest clue why he didn't feel the need or see the need to take this approach years ago, like we've all been saying. But it feels like we're at a new place where Apple's actually going to take it seriously and build some of their own products, which is, in my opinion, very exciting.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think you're right about Tim Cook and investors and everything else. I mean, I don't know. Again, we love Apple products, but there is something to be said for Apple with all the cash it has on hand building something out. Now, I think number one, investors are right. I mean, forever. And I think Ethan Mollick actually just put this out. He put out the cover of, I may have this a little bit wrong, but from Fortune, and it might have been back in the 90s. And it was like the CEO of Nokia and says like, nothing will ever stop Nokia. And it's like they own 98% of the mobile market or whatever. Look, I'm all bullish on Apple. But whereas I thought the complete and total moat was just the iPhone, I still think that. But what are they doing? This is why I'm so eager to talk about this whole ChatGPT competitor thing, which looks like, and Gene, you've read more about this than I have, I think, but we have said all along that Apple does not need an army of PhDs. Like, it doesn't need sort of, the Gemini 2.5 Pro, and it doesn't need Claude Opus 4, right? It doesn't need that. Nobody is walking around on their iPhone and they stop, in Midtown Manhattan, and it's like, hey, so with string theory, and they start running calculations. Nobody needs that. What they need is something that is smart, that will answer them in the way that they expect to be answered. And by the way, same for Alexa, right? You don't need this incredible, knowledge base inside the large language model. You need something that will give you the answer when it's going to give it to you. And so the fact that they're even toying with this idea of, kind of like just an answer model, to me feels like it will solve 50% of the problem that they're having, unless I'm misreading this. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so I think this is exciting. I think that they've kind of fallen behind, but they're going to make some big changes. This is what I'm excited for. That they're building right now. They're building what they're calling a quote unquote answer engine. Now, the way that I love getting Apple leaks, because we know this is a very secretive, locked down company, but there's a bunch of public places that you basically can source information on what they're building out, even though you may not be able to get like the exact details. And basically, we know that they're building this quote unquote answer engine right now because there is a job board, basically job listings, where they are looking for people that have experience with search algorithms and engine development to build, to work on something that is, apparently there's a team called the Answers, Knowledge, and Information team. Okay, so why are they doing this right now? Why didn't they do this sooner? What was the delays? There's a lot of, and it's impossible to say for certain on this, but I think there's a lot of people are pointing to the fact that Google just had basically a big defeat, an antitrust defeat, because the DOJ basically said that Google paying Apple to be this default search engine on iPhones was kind of this kind of antitrust thing. And it was, and if you want to know how much they were paying, well, Google was paying $18 to $20 billion a year to be the default search engine on Apple devices. So that's a lot of money. And you have to wonder, like, okay, a year, it's so crazy. Connor, do you know what Google's annual revenue is from their search business, basically?
50 billion? I don't know.
So it's 300 last year. It was 350 billion, up from 300 billion the year before. So, Google would have been making this payment off of their year's revenue before, which was at 305, but I guess they could have forecasted the 350. But basically, $20 billion, like, is small compared to 350, but this is their own standalone company that they built their own infrastructure and distribution through Android and so many other things that Google's got out there. So like, of the $350 billion that they made, they're paying 20 billion of that to Apple. Mm-hmm. So it's like a pretty good chunk, but obviously they're still profitable on it, right? Because Apple's such a huge user base, and iPhone devices are probably very high quality users that will pay a lot of money for ad clicks, et cetera, et cetera. So like, it seems really worthwhile, but still, that's a lot of money. And it's a sizable percentage of their overall revenue from their search business, which I thought was kind of interesting. So it feels like with Google losing this basically antitrust thing where they're not really going to be able to probably pay Apple anymore to be the default search engine, Apple's seen, okay, well, here's a $20 billion revenue loss. If we're not going to get paid by Google, let's just make our own. That kind of feels like what they're doing right now. So I think this is going to be really interesting to see what they're actually able to create. And it feels like they know that, just replicating Google isn't the answer today. It needs to be basically replicating ChatGPT with search built in. And so I think we're going to see another pretty strong ChatGPT.
Why would they not want to own this end to end anyway, right? It just doesn't make 100%. Any sense, especially because of the amount of money they have. And this is the thing that's always puzzled me about, I guess Amazon technically has their own large foundation model or large language model, but like, I don't know. There hasn't been any press about it or word about it. I don't know how good it is or anything like that. But you'd think, okay, well, they're building that can go in Alexa. Like our hope and prayer is always that, because they have a lot of Anthropic, by the way, Google, do you remember when Google invested like $300 million in Anthropic, like on like day one? Like Google must own like a chunk of Anthropic, and nobody ever talks about that. But anyway, point being that they have, like, Amazon with all these dead Alexas sitting in everybody's kitchen, and then we have like 5 Alexas, why aren't they doing this? And same with the iPhone. Like, why would they not just want to have a better large language model? It's so unbelievably puzzling to me. Like, all throughout 2024, I was like, okay, well, it'll come, whatever. And the other thing, Jaeden, is you might have seen this, that because everybody was terrified of tariffs, Apple made something like 94 billion on iPhones in like 3 months because everybody was trying to buy, like you probably, right? Like try to buy their iPhones before tariffs hit. And so they have all this money. I'm just wondering where they're investing it. I don't know what they're going to do with this.
Okay, I agree. I think that they're going to push hopefully harder than before. They say they're going to invest more money in it. So I hope they push harder into it before. As we close out the episode, I want to just give you, and so we're eagerly waiting the ChatGPT competitor from Apple. But as we close out the episode, I want to give you the closing spin from Tim Cook on basically why they've waited so long. He has a very good justification.
I feel like we need a drum roll for this. Like Tim Cook in front of everybody. Jaeden, give it to us in your own words. Go on.
That's what he says. He says, we've rarely been first. There was PC before Mac. There was a smartphone before the iPhone. There were many tablets before the iPad. There was an MP3 player before the iPod. And basically, then he says, that's why this didn't stop Apple from inventing the more quote unquote modern version of these products. And that's why, we were slow to AI, but now we're going to invent the modern AI. In any case, I think it's hilarious. I love this spin. If he really believed this, I think he would have been building out some pretty hefty AI labs in the background at Apple in the meantime, so that they could lightning strike a product whenever it was quote unquote ready. All that to say, it seems like this is something they're going to take seriously now. How long will it take? Is now a lot of people's question, and I think the answer lies in just how aggressively Tim Cook wants to be. How fast can it be? I think look no further than XAI and Grok. They were able to stand up a massive data center and train the first version of Grok in like 6 months or something like that. So Apple could be quite aggressive and put something out very fast. I feel like Apple, the thoughtful approach, is probably going to be more what the quote unquote thoughtful approach is going to be what Tim Cook follows here. So I don't think we're going to see it immediately, which means who knows where the AI market will be when he gets there. But I really think if Tim Cook wants to compete, he has to take a page out of Zuckerberg's book. As much as I hate saying that, he's probably going to have to start paying $200 million to get a whole bunch of top researchers and bring them in. Otherwise, there is no way Apple is catching up to all of the money and the incredible research talent that is chasing it right now. If they're not able to be competitive and really go faster than they've been going so far. So I have hope, but I'm bullish on Apple because they've made great products in the past, but I think they really need to make an actual difference more than just saying, more than just the words. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, no, 100%. By the way, the other thing that was in that in this article, I think it was in The Verge, that was saying that that Zuckerberg was actually stealing people from Apple just to make matters worse. Anybody that Apple did have, Zuckerberg was stealing those people too. So anyway, close us out, Jaeden.
Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning into the podcast. If you haven't already, the number one way I think you can probably improve not just yourself, but your organization's use of AI tools is to check out Conor's AI Mindset course. It's a phenomenal course. Thousands of people have given it rave reviews. Sometimes organizations will get it for thousands of, I think 12,000 employees recently on a recent company that just incorporated it. And basically, this is something that can change your entire organization. Conor has these incredible frameworks set out there. So if these huge companies are making all of their employees take it, I think this is something incredibly valuable for you. If you haven't checked it out already, there's a link in the description. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.